Every DJ starts at the bottom of this pyramid. Few make it to the top. Today, we're going to climb it together. This is the DJ skill pyramid, the 5 levels of DJ mastery, and the one step beyond. This isn't about gear or tricks, it's about knowing what to practice and when, because that's the difference between a DJ who just mixes tracks and one who controls the crowd. So level 1, it's the foundation. It's all about controlling the music. And at the base of this pyramid is that control. This is where every DJ begins and where most DJs actually stay. You see, at this stage, you're learning to sound intentional, to make every transition feel like it's meant to happen. There are a lot of drills that you can practice on your equipment, even if you're not a beginner DJ, that actually can make you such a better DJ in the long run. Some of those skills that we really drive home in our education is that control over the music and taking and removing the visuals to train those ears to understand what's going on and to just get in control using your instrument, using your DJ equipment. So something I always recommend is, if you're in Rekordbox, for example, or most DJ software, pressing the spacebar, or even better, just closing the laptop screen somewhat so you're not distracted by the visuals. For this exercise, I have 2 of the house loop DJ tools that we provide within our courses, but you can set some loops on something simple with your own library. At the moment, they're both at the same BPM and they're nice and simple. You've got rid of the visuals, and then for this drill, all I do is recommend that you practice keeping things in time with each other. Set them off. If they're not quite right, try and correct them. Now they're both at the same BPM at the moment, so this is just getting familiar with the jog wheel, nudging it in and out of time. However, the real turning point for this is when you can quickly adjust and adapt to when things aren't in time. So to do that, we're just going to move the tempo adjust and then try catch it back up. Something like this. I've made it a bit faster. We're listening, it starts to go wrong. And being able to train our ears to control using the jog wheel, and then eventually using our other hand to adjust the tempo to keep those tracks in time. Now, I'm not bothered what the BPMs say. What I'm bothered about is, do they sound okay? Are they still in time? And this drill you can practice over and over. It's something we break down massively within our beginner DJ courses, but something you can take away and practice right away if you feel confident enough to load in some loops on your DJ equipment. Once you feel confident and you feel like you're in time, challenge yourself again. The aim here is to feel in control and be able to adapt and amend that speed and that BPM just using your ears and your hands. You could check it if you want to bring the visuals back in, but more than anything, just being able to do it nice and quickly on your DJ equipment. Now I hear you screaming at the screen, why don't we just hit the sync button? Why bother learning to do that? Well, it goes beyond just the tool of sync being able to do that process for us. What we're actually doing at that stage is training our ears to listen to the nuances and the intricacies of the sound and the music, so that when you start to apply lots of other techniques within your DJ sets or you're live in the mix, you're not always having to rely on a tool within the DJ software or hardware to do that process for you. What you're doing is you're training your ears to understand what sounds good, what doesn't, when something sounds like it works well together and it doesn't. Because as you start doing EQing and using effects and all this other stuff, there's not a visual or a tool that tells you whether that's good or not. You have to use your ears and determine whether it's good or not. So by starting the process in this way and really using your ears from the very start of the journey, it only helps when you start introducing lots of other things to the music. And while we're talking about this pyramid and the bottom of this pyramid being very full of DJs, there are a lot of DJs out there that can buy a piece of DJ equipment, that can press a sync button and that could mix 2 tracks together. How do you level above that? If everyone is using that same tool, how do you take a step above that? And this is where building those solid foundations really allow you to excel as you go further up the pyramid. So once you can control the music, the next natural step is learning to control the mix. That leads us on to level 2 of the pyramid. This is the mixer. It's the transitions and the flow. Now we move from just playing tracks to actually mixing long sets. This is where you stop thinking about individual songs and start thinking about flow. You start to understand much more about song structure, the intros, the breakdowns, the build-ups, the drops, outros. You learn to plan your transitions and make sure they sound musical and not just too mechanical. So here's the key. You can use EQs and filters to create balance between two tracks. Think of it like filling a cup of liquid. It can only hold so much before it all overflows. And the same applies to your mix. If there's too much bass or too much top end, the whole thing becomes muddy and harsh and just overpowering. EQs are how you make space. You fade one element out while letting another come in. That's the art of mixing. Let me show you how that translates into entire sets as well. At this stage in the pyramid, what you want to be practicing are two things: how individual songs come together and work as an individual transition, and then how multiple songs come together to form a full set. So step one, do not get distracted. You might have a piece of equipment just like this one that has many different features, from stems to looping to performance pad modes to crazy effects. Like, there's so much that you can get in DJ gear nowadays that a lot of DJs will almost skip this really important step of just thinking about the mixer. The foundation of how two tracks, two channels blend together using just the EQs. And what I would recommend to drill down and practice at this stage is to really get familiar with the EQs, because you probably found yourself falling into a trap of, I'll just take the bass out, I'll bring the fader in, I'll swap the low ends over, I'll take the fader away. Now, it does work a lot of the time, that can work well, but don't just rely on that for every transition, because you can really clean the transition up even further by focusing on the mids and the highs, and also the levels, using, if you need to, use the trim control or the levels here to really make sure we get this nice clean balance across the mix. So the good thing to practice for this stage is to basically get two tracks that are the same BPM or very similar BPM, and also that work in key with each other. And we set them off in that main body section where there's lots going on, and then bring both faders out loud. Obviously, this is just for practice purposes, and just listen to what happens when we start experimenting with the EQs. So by dropping the mid there, it allowed for a lot more room in the mix. It cleaned it up slightly. The highs don't do loads, but again, it's just working. What does it sound like if I drop this one down versus the other side? And you can really hear the difference, and it depends what you want in the foreground at that moment. Let's swap the mids over a bit. Swap them back. So straight away that loses something, it loses a bit of energy. So by experimenting this way and just turning the opposites up and down, it can really help you to identify what sounds good and what maybe doesn't. Even just swapping the lows there, you can hear that this is a much straighter beat, where this has much more groove. Just little things like that, detecting when you make those adjustments, what kind of energy switches in that individual transition between the songs. So just loop sections of different songs and play around with the EQs, really pushing parts up and down, not just with the low, but with the mids and the highs as well. And that'll really help you set a strong foundation for when you're in the mix and you hear some things a bit too loud, or there's an element there that you want to really bring to life. You're not thinking, how do I do that? It becomes muscle memory. Your subconscious takes over, and it's in the mid section. You need to push the mid a bit more, and that comes from drilling down like this and practicing just blending the EQs back and forth over the same sections of songs, and that can really help. Just going back to my analogy here, I mentioned about the cups, and you can really paint this picture in your head that this master here, this main cup, is what's coming out of the speakers. It's what everyone can hear. And then you have control over two decks. So you've got deck 1 and deck 2. Now you need to add a bit of deck 1. Maybe deck 1's, the main chunk of audio coming out of the master. But what happens is if you add too much of the second song, it'll start to overflow out the top. So you've got to remove some of deck 1 and blend them together, just like my scribbling, but hopefully it paints a picture that by removing some of the liquid from deck 1, we can make room for deck 2, and that's where the EQs are coming in. You're taking stuff away to then be able to add the other stuff. Otherwise, it's going to overflow and just sound too messy. So hopefully that analogy sticks in your brain next time you mix 2 tracks together. Another thing I want you to understand is the journey of a DJ set. So let's say this is the start of a DJ set, and over here is the end of a DJ set. Now, what most DJs think is we start slow and it builds up in intensity, and you leave it here and the next DJ comes on. And a lot of DJs work in that way. They think, okay, that is the best way to go about a DJ set. It just gets more and more and more intense and builds up. Well, actually, just like anything in life, no progress is linear, and the audience needs a break throughout as well. And you need to take them on a journey, and a journey is never just one line from one place to another. So think about it as you might take the audience up a bit, and then you control it. You level it out a little bit. You take them up again another step, and then you level it out, and then you might bring them down a bit and then level it out before taking them back up. And what happens is, as you're taking the audience energy level back down slightly, it gives you space and room to then create an impact and bring it back up. Because if all you're ever doing is stacking energy on energy and it's getting more and more intense, like a straight line throughout, you're not giving yourself much room to take control of that atmosphere. So really think about, yes, you are working up, but you might, do it in stages, and eventually you do end your set up here. But you've taken them on a journey. And this then goes back to the idea of a song. A song doesn't just start and then have a build up and drop in and stay there for the rest of the song. It goes back down again. Most songs, it has the different sections for a reason. So if a song's got, big build ups, there's room for everyone to go crazy when it drops in. You've got the energy, but just like an individual song, comes back down in its energy as well. So it gives the audience a break and a rest. So what you need to be thinking about at this level is really using the structure of songs to your advantage. What you want to try and avoid is mixing, having a song build up, and then removing the drop and mixing the next song into a breakdown. And what you've done is taken that structure away from the listener. It's built up, and then you've pushed it back into a breakdown. So it's a really common mistake a lot of DJs do at this stage, is they don't think about the structure of the song and stick to that structure. If you're building up, you need to let it drop. And then as that drop's finishing, maybe you go into the breakdown of another song. And that's how you stick with the structure, and it will continue to pick up throughout your set as you pick different songs that maybe increase in intensity, but still always think about how that song's structured and how that structure expands across an entire set. Now that your mixes flow and you can get from one track to another in a clean way, it's time to think about creativity. And that leads us on to level 3 of the pyramid, the creative DJ, where you add personality and expression. This is where the real fun begins. You've got control, your transitions are clean, and now it's time to find your sound. This is about developing your signature, your personality. It's not copying someone else's sets, but it really is about building that DJ personality. You start experimenting using effects and samples quite tastefully. You're trying genre transitions and energy shifts between songs. You're creating tension and release with loops and builds. You're learning when to touch the decks and actually when to leave them alone. You might be a DJ that plays lots of garage and bass house, and your mixing style might want to be more aggressive and, more creative with some of the performance features. So again, you'd be practicing and drilling down what it would mean to do things like cutting in.
Elevate your mind. Elevate your mind.
At this stage, you will likely start to realise that different genres carry with them different mixing styles to add to your personality. For example, DJ Angelo in this clip is using a lot of scratching and some wordplay to perform something really unique and creative when mixing hip-hop.
1, and then comes the 2 to the 3 and 4. 1, and then comes the 2 to the 3 and 4. 4, 4, 4, 4. 1, and then comes the 2 to the 3 and
Mastering this type of DJing would be very different to finding your style as a techno DJ, for example. Pulling this off would require lessons on scratching and hotkey play and using your equipment more like an instrument, something we cover a lot in our open format, scratching and creative mixing courses. If you were to compare the previous example to this one, you can tell that to become a creative house DJ, you could work more on mixing 3 or 4 decks and tightening loops to create better build-ups. Your skill set becomes part of what gives your DJ set's personality. So at this point, you're not just mixing tracks anymore, you're performing with them. This is where Crossfader's learning journey becomes really powerful. You can venture through our specific genre mixing courses, then dive into mix breakdowns of pro DJ sets, or even go behind the scenes and learn how we plan and prepare the DJ performances we create for YouTube. At this stage, you can use Crossfader's platform to really find your style and mixing personality. All courses are currently 50% off for Black Friday, so make sure to click the link and check them out. Now it's about connection. You start thinking beyond yourself. You'll be thinking, what does the crowd need right now? This level is all about presence. You read the crowd, you control the energy in real time in that room. This is really about building mini sets as well, 10 to 15 minutes of music that always works. You prepare your go-to playlists for any kind of vibe, and when something goes wrong, you don't panic, you adapt. Let's take a look at some examples. So at this stage in the pyramid, you're confident with your equipment, you're confident at mixing, you're confident at being a DJ, okay? So what do you practice at this point? Well, something I'd really recommend drilling down on is actually thinking about bite-sizing what you do. And what I mean by this is having playlists where you maybe only have 10 to maximum 20, maybe even less than 10, but almost mini routines. They're groups of songs that you know always work well together and you've mixed many times before. And you've practiced being a bit more creative with them and doing something that really elevates that section of the set. So I've got one here called Mood Boosters. Loads of these songs have that energy and vibe that I know pick up the feeling and the mood, and I could play all of these in a segment of my set in a certain order that I've practiced over and over, and it will always do something to the set. It's almost like thinking about, okay, at this point in the night when the crowd are at that tipping point, I jump into that playlist and I play these songs in that order, in that specific way that's unique to me, that really elevates the energy. I've got another example here, You Can Do It. That's simply what the playlist is called, and that's because the first track is Caribou, You Can Do It. But everything leads off from there, and that's another maybe style of the set, another part of the set. It's something that I've, mixed these songs quite often, and it creates a certain vibe and maybe transition point within the set for a specific crowd. So at this stage, start breaking it down, and something we teach within our DJ Hub, an extra lesson, is how to start thinking about mixing quicker in this way. Something called power block mixing, which allows you to group lots of songs together and mix them quickly, but still sound really clean. And it's just a really good way of kind of batching parts of your set together. And it means you can always draw for them at certain points. And it doesn't mean your entire set is going to remain the same from night to night, but certain sections might remain the same. The 3 or 4 tracks that you always mix back to back, because it creates a certain lift or change in the vibe, and you know that. So that's really what you want to be drilling down at this part of the pyramid. And it's something that we dive into in loads of different ways within the DJ Hub, within the Crossfader platform.
Told you legal, don't trip off my people, just hop in the Regal. I swoop on her like an eagle, swoop down on the spray. I know you popular, but you gon' be famous today. I like the way you do that right there.
So we begin mixing in the track. I'm gonna use stems. So we just got the acapella playing. Get the next track ready. Echo out. Loading the next track. This one's got an acapella intro, so we're just using the acapella intro. Just the instrumental on this side. Let's use a dub echo to get rid of the instrumental. Get the next track. Start to mix in. Just get the vocal. Bring in the instrumental. Load in the next track. Again, let's use stems. Matching the BPM. This one's got an instrumental intro. We're just going to remove the instruments. Maybe add some echo.
So, how to get gigs, leveling up on social media, and mastering a CDJ setup. It's all covered inside Crossfader's courses and complete DJ package. See, now you can perform, but to truly stand out, you need to master the mindset. This leads us on to level 5. This is going from being a hobby DJ to a pro DJ, and it really is the mastery of it. Here it's not about technique anymore, it's about consistency, identity, professionalism, and networking. You see, you build your DJ brand and you know who you are, what you play, and how you show up. You'll be recording and reviewing your sets to improve. You stay disciplined with lots of practice and preparation, and you don't really wait for gigs, you will create your own opportunities. You see, a lot of those opportunities come from immersing yourself in the DJ communities, both local and global, something you can tap into through Crossfader. There are DJs who simply joined our Discord as a student and are now picking up gigs in their local area, or others who have entered our DJ competitions and are now getting gigs at major events like ADE or main stages at festivals. If you're still watching this and you've already reached the top of the DJ pyramid, then bravo, well done. But there is one more step. Above the pyramid, there's actually a new level. The moment you stop just playing music and start creating it, this is the DJ to producer stage. It's where your intuition from learning to mix turns into actual music creation. You start building your own edits, mashups, and even full tracks. You'll be shaping your sound from the booth right the way to the studio, because for you to truly break through from resident DJ to global main stage DJ, it needs your own sound. And at Crossfader, we are super proud to have just launched our DJ to Producer course in collaboration with Tool Room Academy. That's right, and I've even taken this course and I've started producing myself. So rather than sort of explain this ascension from the pyramid, let's say, I just want to give you a bit of an insight into what I've been working on using this education that's been created, like I say, in collaboration with Tool Room Academy. So here's one of my first edits that I've created. So just to show you, the original track first was this Into the Valley Classics Julio Bashmore remix. I'm just flicking through it so you can hear it. And then what I've learned from taking the course and what we've done here is taken everything I've understood of being a DJ, broken the stems down of the track, brought them into Ableton, where you learn how to actually like go beyond just adding some drum fills and some, you know, extra elements to actually fully producing an edit and a remix, which sounds something like this. Got a nice groovy bass line to kind of keep the DNA of the original.
So take me out, baby. Take me by the hand into the
And ultimately, I was just trying to bring some of that stuff that I love from the original into a more 2025 version of the song. And I'm really at that stage where I'm experimenting with my sound, and that course has allowed me to really discover how to use Ableton, how to start taking music and elevating it and doing more than just mix it. Another example of this is this tune here, which is one of my old school favourite tunes. Henrik Schwartz remix of Feeling You. But it was a bit slow for me if I was playing it in my sets nowadays, so again, I've moved into Ableton. I started re-editing it a bit faster. With some chunkier tribal drums, let's go to the drop section. This is still a work in progress. So really, to start taking it from DJ to producer, you want to be thinking about what is my sound. And right now you might not know what your exact sound is, and I'm still experimenting with what my sound is. I'm taking inspiration from all these elements of my DJ journey and everything I've learned from being a DJ and bringing it to something, you know, that is much more experimental in the way that I'm creating. Here's just one more example of a totally different style of music that, again, I'm experimenting with sort of the Afrobeat, Afro house style. And all of this I've learned from this course that we've just added to our catalogue. So that's just a snippet of some of the things that I'm personally working on. But at that point where you've mastered everything within the pyramid and you feel like you're a confident DJ, where do you take it next? And exploring, making your own music is definitely the way to ascend beyond everything I've explained within the pyramid. You see, we built this entire pyramid inside our complete DJ package. There's more than 30 DJ courses, over 1,800 individual lessons, a full roadmap from beginner to pro. And because every DJ's setup is unique, our platform adapts to you, your equipment, your software, your goals. The learning journey personalizes the route. So no matter where you start, you'll always know your next step. And that new top tier, the DJ to producer course, is your perfect add-on if you're ready to go beyond just DJing. And right now, you can get all of this during our Black Friday sale at its best price ever. This discount only comes around once a year, so click the link and go check it out. So the question is, which level are you on? And how high do you actually want to climb up that pyramid? Every DJ starts at the bottom, but only those who practice the right skills at the right time make it to the top. So let's build your pyramid together. Join us inside Crossfader.